What's going on, everybody? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome to the top 10 new locations that have been added into the Farmlands. In November's update, we got a absolutely massive facelift to the Farmlands region. It went from empty plains and abandoned farmsteads to a scorched earth and utter destruction, with a good mix of mystery embedded in many of these locations. And I gotta say, my dudes, I am a huge fan of this design. We have such unique locations to fight in and explore now, and visually, we can see the machines as the threat they are, with the world basically in shambles. Today, we'll be talking about the best of these locations, either based on the visual storytelling, the potential for the future of GZ, and things that are just plain awesome to see. Now, of course, there are tons more locations outside of just this list, so if there are any locations that you found potentially incredibly unique, maybe throw them up in the comment section down below. The first location we're coming to is Villa Bro Sculla. Though first seemingly unimposing, the villa has a bit of a story to tell. Seemingly, this young couple had just moved into the villa, and during their unpacking and painting of the house, they found themselves attacked and sadly killed by the machines. This is a great example of how unprepared people were for the machine invasion, and shows how people were just living their normal lives before meeting their end or being forced into hiding. As well, this is just a real nice color to paint a room. It's a shame they couldn't have finished it a day earlier. You can find Villa Bro Sculla just down the road from Bro Sculla itself, just an earshot away from the safe house there. Next up, we're coming on over to Valby, one of the many farmsteads left in absolute ruin here, but one with a really nice utility for us, the players. Valby is a site of pure carnage. The house is barely left standing, and the two barns are left absolutely worse for wear. But the big thing here is the barn on the far side of the farm. Crouching our way into this barn, and with a little bit of tricky jumps, you can make your way up to the upper level, and here you can find the shelter of two previous survivors. Now this set piece here, again, is one of the many times where I think to myself, what would I do if I was in the situation of Generation Zero? What would I do if machines were invading my homeland and I felt like I had no other option than to flee my residence and set up camp somewhere else? And honestly, this is pretty much the way I would go about it. I would find somewhere that had been previously attacked, previously destroyed, so that it would have less of a chance of being attacked again in the future, and I would hole up there with whatever food and water and resources and munitions I personally could. Now, outside of the excellent visual storytelling that we got here off at Valby, there is another huge benefit to Valby, which is this sniper perch up here. This sniper perch is potentially one of the better sniper perches for taking on tanks and taking on general enemies in the area. You have tons of cover from the roof itself, and honestly, it's just a really comfy spot to snipe enemies from. You can find Valby just due west from Bro Sculla, so if you've hit up the first location of Villa Bro Sculla, you can head on over to Valby really quickly and really easily from this spot, so that way you can do some tank sniping yourself. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering, what about the cult of machine worshippers, the Leusek commune? Have they been forgotten about? And I'm happy to tell you dudes, no they have not. We've gotten tons of news in the eventual release of the Reaper. We've gotten some behind the scenes information about Bunker 666. We've gotten tons of set pieces with the Iron Church. And now finally we're seeing another set piece with seemingly what can only be assumed to be the Leusek commune. Now, this spot is weird as heck. I'm not gonna lie, my dudes. Like, you know, the whole tick in the summoning circle back on Hemfell was super weird, but this is even more weird. Why the apples? Why the saucers in the cups? Why is this chick dual-wielding plants? What's up with the party hat? What is going on here? And then over here, the absolute cheek to end it all is that we've got like 20 signs saying, "He who seeks shall find." Well, I'm not sure what I found, but I definitely found something here. This is easily gonna chalk itself up to another one of those locations that you just kind of scratch your head about and you go, well, that was kind of weird, and then you move on with your day. You can find this absolutely strange location just north of Boo, just kind of in the upper area of the farmland. Now, next up, we're coming on over to Stordurbo for a location that potentially has a lot of potential for the future of Generation Zero here. At least in regards to having some sort of unique mission go on, or something along the sorts happening here. Now, just outside of Stordurbo, we can find this barn that's been embedded into the cliffside, and again, completely ravaged and destroyed. And this barn is really interesting. So I think back up at the normal farmstead of Stordurbo, there's this hatch here, and I really think that the hatch and the barn outside somehow kind of meet up inside the cliffside here. You can kind of peek your way into the hatch here, and it's really hard to tell what the heck is going on down there. It looks like just a ton of rubble, potentially, but it could also be something else. Now, it's really hard to say if in the future we'll actually go down into this hatch and maybe do something in this underground area. I think it would be pretty cool. This is Uncle Cal's kind of farmstead area, so I think that there's some really fun things that the team could potentially cram down there as a bit of an homage to Uncle Cal, considering he sacrificed himself for us in Phoenix Rising. You could find the embedded barn just outside of Stordurbo, just by this kind of, it's kind of like a boot shape, so just kind of by like the toe of the boot right there. Now, for our next location, we're coming on over to potentially the wildest party house in all of Osterturn here. We're going to be coming on over to Fostermark. Now, Fostermark might hit you up as a typical bullet-ridden house with just a couple dead bodies around it, but it is far from that, my dudes. There's potential cult activity here, and a quote-unquote new medkit here in Generation Zero. Now, Fostermark has some really perplexing things around it, and some chairs that are way too close together. These dudes must have been having some incredibly personal conversations before they were slaughtered by machines. But out on the dock here, we could find this weird setup of pillows and saucers. And from what we saw with Petterstorp, there is clearly something going on with saucers and the Leusek commune, maybe. Now, I'm sure you've noticed it already, but there is a new medkit right here, and these medkits are actually even better than advanced medkits. Now, these medkits aren't entirely brand new. They're actually the first aid kits that you can get in Hunter Call of the Wild. But I really like them being here in Generation Zero, and I really enjoy the idea of having some sort of a crossover, some sort of a tie-over to the world of Hunter Call of the Wild. And I think that this would be an excellent way of doing so. Introduce the first aid kits, maybe a couple miscellaneous items from Hunter Call of the Wild, maybe an Easter egg or a nod somewhere across the map, and I think that that would be really awesome to see. And then the other thing too is in the meta of Generation Zero, currently, it's actually quite useful to have a medkit that is stronger than an advanced medkit. Also, these medkits do respawn, so while they're here, you might as well farm them, my dudes. You can farm them by just quitting to menu, jumping back into the game, and hitting up Fostermark. Now, for some locations where we definitely will be hitting them up again in some sort of future mission. For Location 6, we have both of the Phoenix research facilities. One being inside the Overby airbase, and one just due west of the airbase. We can get some pretty slick views into these research facilities. In Overby here, we can see there are 2 doorways for us to go through, and a number of Phoenix servers and 2 rooms in the back of the compound. It's hard to say what we'll be doing here, but it's safe to bet that we'll either be hacking or destroying these servers. And for the research facility out in the plains, we have a completely different setup with like 10 times the amount of ticks. This place is set up with one door and one enclosure. What's beyond that is impossible to know right now. Maybe a holding bay of machines that we'll hack into, kind of like what we did back in Phoenix Rising, or maybe something else, some sort of an interior, maybe some sort of underground structure that we'll enter into. It's really hard to tell. The amount of Phoenix structures in the Farmlands are few and far between right now, but I feel as we see the third iteration on the Farmlands that there will be a lot more for us to look out for. Now, I gotta say, this Phoenix research facility out in the plains here is probably my favorite research facility. I really like the way it's just kind of like terraformed into the environment here, how these walls are just kind of haphazardly slapped together. Clearly, the ticks were just going ham in this area with building this research facility. It's probably one of my favorite layouts so far. Now, you can find the Phoenix Research Facility out in the plains, just out here, just as I said, due west from the Overby Air Base. And you can find the Overby Research Facility just right smack dab in the middle of Overby Air Base. Now, for our next location, we're coming over to an absolute blast from the past. We're coming over to Gruben, which actually was my first unique locations video ever on this channel, way back in April of 2019. Now, Gruben's gotten an absolutely massive facelift to the location here, and I absolutely love it. So we've got this little shed here that actually has a bit of an Easter egg in it, so I'll leave that for you dudes to find. But inside of this shed is a number of great things, like scattered resources around the area. And I've said it in the past, but I really like having the resources out in the world for us to pick up, as well as off of machines and through our typical farming methods, because it just kind of adds a layer of immersion to the crafting materials. Now, Gruben itself is a mine, and it's one of my favorite cave expanses in the entire game, and the caves and the mines over here at Gruben got a little bit of a tweaking here that I am a huge fan of. Now, going up the stairs of the refinery here, we can actually find a new building kind of just planted on top of this tower here, right by our friend, the sniper army guy. And again, Gruben is hands down the best spot in the map to do just like some really fun sniping from. But over here at this spot, we actually have a locked door, and currently we know in the community that there's nothing behind this locked door, but there is a huge potential for something to be placed in there in the future. Some sort of mission for us to go after, maybe a tweaking to the Lone Wolf mission itself, but there's definitely something that should or could be inside of this blue door. Now, you can find Gruben just on the border of the Farmlands region and the Mountains region over here. Now, next up, we're coming on over to Stormera Bunker. This is a really crazy introduction here into the Farmlands, my dudes. So, Stormera is basically like a sole successor to the Readiness Bunker off in Saltham. It's just a small little bunker kind of shoved into a wall here that has a little enclosure, some dead bodies, and a whole bunch of ticks. Alongside that, it also has that kind of spooky, creepy horror ambience that you get back at Saltham's personal defense storage. Now, I do have to warn you dudes that there are some kind of semi-frequent crashes around Stormera, but definitely come through here and explore it nonetheless, outside of a few occasional crashes, because it's really worthwhile to come down here and kind of relive some of that ambience, some of that energy that you had back in the early days when you were going through the civil defense of Saltham. And on top of that, there isn't any mission at this location, but I'm kind of okay with that. Personally, I don't think that every location in Generation Zero needs a mission or something crazy to go alongside it. I think that the visual storytelling of Stormera, the kind of creepy ambiance and the experience you get of just going into Stormera itself is well worth the price of admission. So maybe it's nostalgia, but I really feel like Stormera deserves the number 3 spot here. Now for our number 2 spot, Algness, which just like Fostermark is seemingly unassuming on the outside, but it's what's inside that matters. And no, I'm not talking about the massive wine stash upstairs. Inside of the truck outside, we can find an absolute metric ton of surveillance equipment, which leads us to assume this is either a mobile base of operations for either the Resistance or the Iron Church, as we've never really seen the Leusek use any sort of technology of this sort, and they're seemingly a little bit more archaic than the Iron Church or the Resistance. And inside the shed, we can find a sort of warboard combination and collection of all of the maps that we've found in the game, with all of the interesting little red circles and highlights and points of interest across them. As well, we can also find tons and tons of pictures from over on Himfell. This is a really interesting spot here over at Algness, and again, it just points to either the Resistance or the Iron Church being a big part to play in whatever the heck is going to be coming next for us here in Generation Zero. So I want to know, what are your bets? Do you think that this is the Resistance, or do you think that this is the Iron Church over here? You can find Algness just outside of Overby Air Base and just a little bit south of Stordurbo. I highly advise you dudes come on over here, check it out, look at all the maps because maybe you've missed some along the way, and just kind of enjoy hypothesizing about what this location could mean for the future. And now for the number 1 spot of the Farmlands, the massive holy shit crater right in the middle of the Farmlands here. You dudes probably saw this one coming a mile away as the number 1 spot, but there's no way that I cannot talk about this massive crater. So basically, there's a number of things that we can kind of assume here, but that are left unexplained so far in the game. So we could kind of assume that maybe this is where the Reaper originated from over on the mainland here. Potentially. Maybe he came on over from Fola 4 over on Himfell, blew the heck out of this place, just exploded the whole thing, and then went off on a rampage to try to find us out in the game world. Now, why he decided to explode this place of all places is left to kind of be explained. Or, you know, potentially maybe this isn't even the spot for the Reaper itself. Maybe this was where they were testing the thermobaric warhead or something like that. There's clearly a heck ton of mystery surrounding this dang crater. Now, out in this crater, we can find 3 tunnels. We can find the one tunnel where the Reaper blueprint is and a locked door is, and then there are 2 other tunnels, one leading north and one leading west. And basically, both of those tunnels are just completely destroyed. So both of those tunnels are obviously a no-go in the future if we're going to be exploring this place. So that obviously leaves the only tunnel that we can go through that has a locked door in it, which is the tunnel with the Reaper blueprint. Now, what's behind this locked door is, again, an absolute mystery, my dudes. Basically, I have a bit of an assumption here, in which case it's going to be some sort of massive underground complex that kind of spans underneath the Farmlands. And potentially from the one door, we can make our way around the complex to get to where those destroyed tunnels were actually leading to. Or maybe we'll wind up coming across some sort of massive phoenix hive where there's like some sort of like research and production facility for machines or something like that underneath this place. It's really, really hard to say at this point what the heck is going on with this crater, but we will find out in due time. You can find the crater just over here at Durbo Slotten. Right now it's showing a mission marker, but that might be an error. It's really hard to say at this point in time. But you can get over here just from good old Stordurbo. It's just a jog away, and you really should go here. Not just for the Reaper blueprint, but for the opportunity to speculate on your own as to what the heck is going on in this crater. Now, all the answers will come to us in due time whenever we get the opportunity to get past this locked door.